So Concrete Genie is now out, and we had heard about it. Of course, we saw some marketing. It was announced just maybe a little under 2 years ago now, back in 2017, and I think it's going to fly under the radar. I think some of that has to do with just the way that it's been marketed and handled by Sony at this point, and of course, we're kind of in a point in time now where a lot of games are coming out, and it's pretty easy for a game that maybe doesn't make a really big impact in the media or on social media or something to kind of get overlooked, and I think this is a game that's going to be heavily overlooked, but I picked it up because I thought it was a very interesting looking game. It's being done by PixelOpus. It's their second game that they're doing. I believe the first one was Entwined, and that was a smaller game, but to see this game at $30, I have to say I'm a bit surprised because I really wasn't expecting it to turn out how it did. And that's actually a good thing because it ended up being a much more fun and interesting game than I was really thinking it was going to be. So I wanted to spend some time and talk a bit about it today and maybe go over some of it, and it might end up being a game that you want to check out as well. I can tell you it's available now. It's $30, so it's half the price of a typical full release. So that's good. At least they didn't. There are a few flaws to the game that I'll go over, and fortunately, the fact that it's $30 does help it quite a bit. That's specifically on the length of the game. But overall, though, let's talk a bit about this game. So you start off playing as Ash, who is a boy that really enjoys kind of drawing pictures. They have like a sketchbook that they'll draw pictures in and everything. And the game at first really focuses around the idea of bullying, as you see different kids come in and kind of rip up the notebook. And at that point, Ash is on a quest to essentially get his pages back. And the game itself does evolve pretty rapidly because it's not a long game, but the story evolves pretty quick, and you'll have twists and turns that happen throughout that kind of shift the focus of what you're trying to do and what your objectives are. Like I said, at first you will start off just trying to get your pages back, and you kind of grab them as you go because the bullies, of course, threw them over the ledge, and you're going looking for them. But eventually you find this magic paintbrush, and that's kind of where the entirety of the game really gets started. And I'll be honest, to go from hitting start to actually playing the game, it's pretty quick. So if you're used to some of the more story involved games on from Sony's first parties, this one's a bit quicker when it comes to that. You're moving and you're playing pretty fast, and once you get the paintbrush, that's when the idea of actually painting and drawing on the walls comes from. So the idea here is you have a magic paintbrush that can basically put up different paintings, and you'll eventually start drawing what are called genies. And these are creatures that kind of come alive in the walls, and we've seen those in different previews and everything. But what I didn't realize is there would actually be different types of genies, because when the game first starts, it is a puzzle game, straight up. You don't have a health bar, nothing. You can't even really die in the game, to be honest, when you're playing. So it is pretty much right away a slower puzzle game, and I think that might actually kind of turn some people off at first, which is a shame because as you get further in, it does change a bit, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But when you first start off, you'll hit R2, and then all of a sudden you have several different paintings you can choose from, and you even get to kind of create your own genie, and they just say, hey, go ahead, you can put, like antennas on them and everything. It's kind of neat to do that, and you'll have different ones. There are genies based around fire, based around wind, based around electricity, and they will do different things to kind of solve puzzles for you. Because they travel through the walls, you will be tasked at times with helping them get to different parts to, for example, electrify a fuse box so that there's then power kind of going to a different part of the map that you need so you can move stuff. I'm trying to be vague here so it's not too obvious, but the puzzles are actually pretty good. And the thing I'll at least give this game credit for is, while I'm talking about its length at times and that being a negative because it's kind of a shorter game, they don't draw stuff out. And I pointed out a couple times where I thought they could have added some busy work, just added a couple extra hours. So in order to paint these different murals and these genies and like these effects, whether it's stars or snow or grass, you need a way to control your cursor, and they give you a few options, which is good. You can use the gyro functionality in the DualShock 4. That's what I used it actually quite a bit. That's kind of the default that they set it, and I got used to it. You have a cursor, you move the controller around. Not a lot. You don't have to like go all over the place because you can change the sensitivity and everything, or you can use just one of the sticks. You can pretty much just say, okay, I'm gonna just physically move around with my thumb to control it. But I found the gyro was pretty good. I didn't have any issues with it, especially if you've used to using gyro controls in other games, whether it's first person or third person style games. You'll be right at home here. And then it also uses the speakers for different effects on the controller while you're drawing and painting, and it's pretty cool. The different genies, what'll happen is they'll ask you for different things, whether it's, oh, I want a sun, or I would like there to be grass here, and then they will feed you what's called super paint, which you can use that to erase different parts of the darkness that is in this town that you're trying to bring back because it has been engulfed in darkness. So as you kind of progress through, you'll be lighting up different lights, and that's kind of how the beginning of the game starts. And I say the beginning because something that kind of caught me off guard midway through is that the entire game just shifts like on a dime. Like it's very odd. It's kind of jarring at first, and I don't really know why they waited so far into the game to do that. So the biggest thing here is the game is roughly 5 to 6 hours long, and halfway through, maybe even a little more, it shifts into an action game. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why they waited that long. I don't know why this wasn't something that takes place earlier on, because when it does that, a lot of things kind of come together and it becomes more interesting. And I saw people who said, oh, I played it for like an hour and I wasn't feeling it. And I thought, man, that's a shame because they didn't get to where the game really becomes interesting, I think. And my biggest problem here is you start to use abilities like fire and lightning and wind. You start to attack things, and there are different enemies and their bosses. It was very interesting and very odd that it just shifted. It's almost like there's two different games here. Really, it's very interesting that they did it that way. But my problem is, it's right towards the end of the game. So by the time you get all these different abilities and you're kind of bringing it all together, the game ends. And I don't really understand why that is. I would have liked to have seen more when you get those abilities for part of the story. Speaking of the story, it's pretty straightforward. I think you're trying to rescue this town from darkness, but on the other side, they do go a bit deeper with things like bullying, for example. There was a scene early on, it's early on, but a scene where one of the bullies will grab the paintbrush that you're holding, and it kind of does a flashback to a bit. It goes kind of into their mind, and it shows some of their experiences at home, and it shows like parents arguing and fighting and everything, and it shows them kind of balled up in a corner. So you kind of feel bad for the bullies and start to understand maybe why they are like that, but it does go into those kind of themes in the game, and it does progress, and the bullies will, you know, they have their own bit of a story to them, and they do work into Ash's story. But it was a bit more, I'll say, it was a bit deeper than I thought it would get based on what they showed in the previews and everything. I thought it was going to be, okay, they're just terrorizing Ash and you just have to avoid them and you got to get to the end and then punish them in some way, you know, whether they're part of a boss battle or something. No, it's a bit more intertwined than that in the story. The visuals in the game are pretty clean. The thing about the visuals is they're definitely going for a more artistic look. So they have all the really nice bright colors and stuff with the different murals and everything. It's not going to blow you away necessarily with the character models, like, at all. In fact, the one thing I do like is that they kind of took the stop motion type mouths and eyes and everything. I don't know if that was necessarily them working towards that kind of art style because they wanted to bring it all together, or if that was a cost savings measure. But it's kind of like think of like the robot chicken mouth, for example, something like that. But I do like the way the game looks when you're painting and the visuals and everything there. It's just kind of the rest of the game, whether it's the landscapes and the character models, they're not amazing, or they're not going to blow you away. But that's going to do it here for Concrete Genie on the PlayStation 4. It's out now. Again, I would check it out, but let me know what you guys think about this one down below, whether you picked it up or you were thinking about it. Let me know what you guys think about the game so far. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it, dislike it if not, and I'll see you guys next time.